I wanted to share, I've been asked to share a few thoughts about Passover, the coming Pesach holiday, with you tonight. And before I do that, of course, you're going to have somebody step in, and coming in wearing a velvet head covering like I am, you might suspect that indeed I'm a Torah observant Jew. And if you suspected that, you would be right. However, I figure I need to give a little bit of context, because if you couldn't tell just from the pink shirt, it wasn't always so. I didn't grow up religious, so I want to give you some background so you can put my remarks in context. I didn't grow up here in Baltimore. I grew up closer to Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has two counties bordering Montgomery County, where all the wealthy Jews live, and then Prince George's County, where I grew up, in a small little slice of trailer heaven that we like to call Beltsville. Now, Beltsville, exactly, you've been there, I guess. Beltsville was not exactly a megalopolis of Judaism. We had 4.5 Jews in Beltsville. It was me, Jordana Enig, Adrian Feldstein, Jeffrey Mensch, and a Jew for Jesus named Phil. We gave him partial credit. Yeah, in Beltsville, pretty much the only religious symbols that we were used to was the sound of the opening of presents on Christmas morning. Oh, Paul, is it really true? My very own shotgun? Well, yes, Billy Bob, you're not a kid anymore. You're going to be 7 next month. Thought you should take on the responsibilities of being a man. Speaking of which, did you gas up the pickup truck when you brought it home last night? Yes, sir. I mean, that was Beltsville. Now, it did have certain advantages, I guess, because when you grow up in that kind of environment, you know, I felt a little self-conscious about being Jewish. Now, I found out later in life that that's a little different than Jews who grew up in towns like Pikesville or Long Island or other areas where there are so many Jews around, and it might be secular Jews, but everything is so Jewish that Judaism suddenly becomes just American. You know, it's like you come in and, you know, there's Dad sitting at the kitchen table and Mom comes through the door and he goes, "Hi, honey, how was your tennis game with Rhoda Bernstein?" Oh, fantastic, great. You know, while you were out, we got a telephone call from our accountants, you know, Cohen, and Cohen, you know, from their assistant we like so much, Levy. Something about, I don't know, that fundraiser over at the Semite Club. Did you set that up, dear? I mean, that is, from what I understand, kind of the Pikesville, Long Island experience. So after a while, you lose the sense of being Jewish, and it just blends in with the rest of life. But somehow, when you go to school, and the teacher goes, "All right, class, this is music class, and in honor of our Jewish friend, we'd like to teach you that famous Israeli folk song, Dreidel, Dreidel, Dreidel." And that was high school. And somehow, you grow up being a little self-conscious about being Jewish. Now, I have to tell you, I never met an Orthodox Jew growing up, and if you had to ask me, well, what would I even have envisioned an Orthodox Jew to look like? I don't know, reach back, I'd have to think, well, probably a tall, elderly, you know, slender gentleman with a long white beard, sort of shuffling along and mumbling incoherently to himself, sort of like a cross between Dumbledore and Yoda. Yeshiva Bacher, you want to be? Something like that. Well, it turns out I met my first observant Jew in law school. Fantastic, wonderful guy. That's how I got to Baltimore. I went to law school here. A guy named Avery Muller. Wonderful guy in town. Didn't look at all like Dumbledore or Yoda. And he was nice, and he was warm and friendly, and started studying with me. And he got married soon after I met him. And he's such a great guy that a couple of weeks after he got married, he was already having guests. And he invited me for Shabbos. Now, we didn't even keep Friday night dinner like a lot of Jews do growing up. My bar mitzvah, we made the hors d'oeuvres and stuff, scallops wrapped in bacon. So this was going to be my first Shabbos, and to make me feel comfortable, Avery invited an 18-year-old yeshiva bacher from Ner Yisrael named Moshe. So it was nice of him, you know, and so there I am, 24-year-old law student Bruce with 18-year-old Moshe. We're roommates. So after dinner, of course, I have to take advantage of the opportunity to ask him my questions, you know, which I've been thinking of for years and years. I said, "So Moshe, let me ask you a question. You know, if learning Torah is so important, then why isn't everyone a rabbi? Huh? Right? I mean, it's that important. Shouldn't everyone? Aren't you supposed to be a rabbi?" He smiled and, you know, gently said, "Look, Bruce, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but in fact, it's not that way. Fact is that the world isn't monochromatic. If you have a rainbow wouldn't be beautiful or made from one color. A symphony wouldn't be beautiful to listen to if it were one note. The fact is that the world is a symphony, it's a rainbow, and so God wants people from all walks of life and occupations. So he wants doctors and toll booth collectors and pharmacists and maybe fewer lawyers, but he still wants a lot of different types of people. I said, you know what, that's such a beautiful, beautiful explanation. You know, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, which of course I can't help but ask you, so what are you going to be? Of course he answered, a rabbi. And it turns out that Moshe Hauer, 18
No way.
my roommate, was the man who turned out to now be my Rav. I belong to B'nai Jacob Shari Zion, and he's Rabbi Moshe Hauer, one of the leading rabbis in the community, and that was my first Shabbos experience was spent with Rabbi Hauer.
Wow.
Which means I don't have to explain the rest. From there, I learned, studied, and did a little bit of what you're doing. And so I'm still not a rabbi, but I love to study Torah when I can, teach it when I can. So I want to take just a couple of minutes to share a couple of thoughts about Passover. I understand I have probably about 3 minutes to conclude.
3 to 5.
3 to 5,
To 6.
okay, 3.5. So let me ask you a question. Passover, everyone's familiar with it, right? My grounding in Passover, even when I was growing up, is completely thorough because I saw Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments every year. So I know that it includes a cast of thousands. But if I were to ask you, in the Passover story, if we were to learn one lesson, the most important lesson from it, that we would take away to become better people, character development, what would you say that lesson would be? What should we learn from Passover as the most important lesson for character development? Any thoughts? Yep.
Freedom.
Freedom is excellent, right? Because we're going from slavery to freedom is very important. But is that something that we can develop in our own character? Maybe to a certain extent, but to a certain extent, it's thrust upon us. By the way, how many Jews left Egypt? How many got their freedom as a result of this? How many?
Like a lot of them I
4/5
saw.
got left behind.
Four-fifths were left behind. How many left? Give me a guess. More than 100?
600,000.
600,000 men,
3
and
million.
you add women and children, 2 to 3 million Jews. Think about that for a while. Yeah, what other lesson can we learn?
I was going to say compassion, because
Why?
well, from being such a lowly state of slavery, and then moving to like an elevated state, we should have an understanding of what's between. So like you can look at anybody in any state in life and have compassion, because you've been at the top and you've been at the bottom.
Absolutely. Brilliant, beautiful compassion. Because we're short on time, let me tell you one other. A lesson that in addition to freedom, which is absolutely crucial, compassion, which is absolutely correct, one other trait. Gratitude. Gratitude. Now, some of the gratitude of Passover, of course, just jumps out at you. It's hard not to have gratitude when you walk up to a large body of water and have it divide for you. You know, when suddenly it's like the Indy 500 for you guys going, all right, let's go, 3 million Jews, boom, you're all the way through, and uh-oh, we're in trouble now because all the Egyptians are coming. What will we do now? Well, what if the water just swallows them up? Oh, that's a good idea. Would we have gratitude for that? Sure. And we do. That's a big event. But you know, among the beautiful things about Passover is that we learn about gratitude even for the ridiculously small things. And I'm going to give you, in my minute and a half remaining, or 2 minutes, 3 quick examples. One is that when we left Egypt, we brought out with this tremendous wealth. Where did we get it from? Where did we get the wealth from that we left Egypt with? Where?
Egyptians.
From the Egyptians. Why?
We took it.
We took it, right? And when was that? During the plague of darkness. And we went around and checked out where it was, and then darkness lifted and went to the Egyptians as we're leaving. Go, could we have all your wealth? I go, I don't have any, really. Go, well, what about behind the picture where that safe is? Oh, yeah, I got that. So God told Abraham, promised, we'll leave with wealth, and the Egyptians gave it to us. We didn't have to take it, they gave it to us. Good. How do we transport it? Donkeys. Every Jew, it said, went out with 90 donkeys laden with wealth. So what, Bruce? How does that relate to gratitude? You know how it relates? We have a special mitzvah, a special commandment when it comes to donkeys. You have donkeys. What's the mitzvah? It's called Peter Chamor. It is that donkeys, the firstborn of a donkey, is deemed to be holy and has to be dedicated to the temple, unless you redeem it with a sheep or a goat.
Brother-in-law told me about this.
What's that?
My brother-in-law told me a story about a donkey that was redeemed that he went to the ceremony for.
Really, it's an amazing thing, which is beautiful because it lends itself to the point, which is it still exists. Now, without the temple, it doesn't exist in the same form, but the fact is, it wasn't just for that generation. First of all, why do we have that mitzvah? And to a certain extent, out of gratitude for what donkeys did for us. What? Donkeys, because an animal helped us carry stuff out of Egypt, we're going to have that much gratitude? There's a mitzvah? Yup. Not only that, but so much that it was forever. It never ends. It's not like, okay, a couple of generations, enough with the donkey stuff already, okay? I said thank you. No, forever. Number two, another example. What else happened as we were leaving Egypt involving animals? Or a better question, what didn't happen? You know what didn't happen? What didn't happen with animals? Dogs didn't bark. And there were plenty of dogs around. But you know what? If they had barked, it would have been such a hubbub. It wouldn't have had the dignity that we associate with Passover. And because dogs didn't bark, there's a mitzvah that if you have treif meat, you throw it out for the dogs. They get rewarded too. So now, animals who did something, the donkeys, get a mitzvah. Animals who even didn't do something, but because they didn't do something that benefited us, there's a mitzvah for them too. Even more than that, with this I'll conclude, even inanimate objects. Moshe Rabbeinu was told that when bringing the plagues, there were certain plagues that he didn't bring. He had to give them to Aaron. Which ones? First, have Aaron extend his staff over the water and turn it into blood. Why didn't Moshe do it? Couldn't get a stick? I mean, Hogwarts was open. Why?
Yeah, the water saved him.
The water saved him. It wouldn't have been gratitude. It would have been a denial of gratitude. The water saved him in the basket, and now he's going to cause a plague? Same with frogs from the water. Even the dust, lice, the kinim came from the dust. Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't cause that plague. Why? He hid the Mitzri, the Egyptian he killed. He hid him in the dust. He had to have that gratitude, even to an inanimate object. Why? You know why? Because gratitude is not something that if I have it, I'm a better person, but if I don't have it, okay, so I'm a regular person. No. Gratitude makes us human. We cannot be a full functioning human being without gratitude. Without gratitude, without the ability to say thank you for what you give me, even if you're obligated to give it to me, even if you weren't intending to give it to me, you gave it to me anyway. Developing that sense of gratitude allows us to be grateful to God for everything that He's given to us. So, with that, I wish you, number one, loads of gratitude to your staff here at WOW for the incredible program that they have offered you and present to you, and all the teachers and students, everyone to make this happen. I'm grateful, and I'm just a part of the program today. So I wish you tons of gratitude for that. And with Passover coming up, I wish upon each of you a full blossoming of humanity, because the more gratitude you feel to God, to your family, to your friends, to those who have brought you to this point of freedom and compassion, they all deserve your gratitude, and the more you express it, the more beautiful and wonderful you are. I wish everyone a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. I thank you so much for letting me speak to you tonight. Have a good night.